So in ancient Greece, they used this certain technique in their plays where there was a mechanism sitting at the side of the stage. And at some point during the play, this mechanism would drop in a person, a character, onto the stage. And this person would represent the introduction of the supernatural being. Now, over time, this technique started to get a really bad name. Because what was happening is these second-rate playwrights were coming along, and they were using this technique in the most sloppy ways. So anytime the tension was too high, they would simply get the mechanism and drop in the supernatural being to relieve the tension. If the conflict was too much, the supernatural being would be dropped in to resolve the conflict. If the plot in any way needed to move forward, the supernatural being, would be dropped in and then taken out. And they called this the Deus ex machina, which literally translates to God out of the machine. And so the critique was this: wait a minute, this doesn't flow. This isn't coherent. Because this godlike figure isn't really part of the story. This godlike figure is just entering into and then being taken out anytime the plot needs to move forward. This doesn't work. When it comes to our understanding of God and prayer, have we created just another Deus ex machina? Another God out of the machine? The tension in our lives builds. And so we beg for this God, this supernatural being, to be dropped in and to relieve the tension. The conflict is too much, so we beg for this God to be dropped into the story and resolve our conflicts. The pain is just too deep, so we ask for this God to come in and fix it. And when it's fixed, we are just fine to have God go right back to the margins of the stage where God belongs. And I think God is bigger than this. I think prayer is better than this. So when we look through the scriptures and we see and hear Jesus praying and talking about prayer, and the early Christians, the early church too, we see something different being modeled. So think about when you read through the scriptures and you come across Jesus praying. I think we can always see two things, and probably a lot more, but I'm just going to pick two this morning: honesty and openness. So when Jesus prays, he's honest with the world around him. He's honest with God. And now, I don't think honesty comes natural to most of us. And see, the problem is we've created this category of honesty that is way too simplistic, that it's just simply the opposite of lying. But I think honesty is actually something we have to practice. So remember, when Jesus is walking, right before he is walking the way of the cross, right before he is walking to his execution, it says he's in the Garden of Gethsemane. And Matthew's gospel tells us that he throws himself down. And he says, "Father, if there's any way for this cup to pass from me, let it be. Like, I don't want to die. I don't want to suffer." He likens his death to a cup that he doesn't want to drink from. And then remember, later as he's hanging on the cross, he utters out this honest prayer: my God, why have you forsaken me?" In this moment, you are absent. In this moment, you aren't here. You have abandoned me. Now, why does Jesus pray this way? Why does he have the authority to talk this way to God? This is the tradition that Jesus stands in. This is the tradition that's handed down to him. He stands in the tradition of those who understand prayer as brutal honesty with God. So think about the Psalms that we read. In the Psalms, you see this kind of honesty, and Jesus would have been intimately familiar with the Psalms, probably had some of them memorized. In Psalm 13, "Where are you, God? How long will you hide your face from me? Forever?" And then Psalm 22, God, why are you so far from me? Far from the words of my groaning. But you see, for them, prayer wasn't just about the times of prayer of suffering and tragedy. It was also, because they saw God as parts of all the story, not just jumping in and out of their story, they also invited God into their deepest joys and celebrations. Like in Psalm 84, where the psalmist says, better is one day in your house than 1,000 days elsewhere. Or how the Message translates it. Better is one day in your presence than 1,000 days on Greek beaches. And you've had moments like this, right? You've had moments in your life where all you could do is cry out to God, God, where are you? What is going on here? I can't make sense of this. But you've also had moments where all you could utter was a prayer of thanks and gratitude and awe. Last summer, we took our 4-year-old daughter, Selah, camping. And it was getting late, so everyone went to their tents to go to sleep. And all of a sudden, Selah wasn't tired. And this went on and on. And so finally, I made a deal with Selah. Because that's what you do with 4-year-olds. You make deals, right? So I said, Selah, if you and I go and look at the stars for a few minutes, will you promise to come back and go right to sleep? Oh, yes, Poppy. Poppy, this will be great. Let's go do that. Okay, but you promise. Oh, yes. So we walk a few hundred feet from the tent, and we lie on the ground. And on this particular night, you could see every star in the universe. And Selah kept saying, Poppy, this is so cool. Pops, this is so cool. And she was teaching me along the way. God and Jesus created all of this. God and Jesus created all of this. And it was that moment where all I could think, all I could be filled with was, God, I can't believe I get to live this life and breathe this air right here, right now. You've had moments like this, right? Where God seems so present, where the divine creative energy is all around you. You can almost touch it. But it's not just about honesty, because some of us have completely nailed honesty when it comes to praying. We talk to God however we want, and we'll let God know when we need to shake our fist. But openness is a different category. And when Jesus prayed, Jesus was incredibly open. Because remember, just before he prays, Father, if it's at all possible, let this cup pass from me. Or I'm sorry, just after that, right after he prays this, he says, but not my will, your will. And I think it's the most difficult prayer we can pray. I think it's the most difficult attitude we can have. It's the most difficult posture we can have. Because when we're open, we are admitting that we don't have all the answers. We are admitting that we might not be the best ones to dictate the future. We are admitting that in the vastness of the universe and in the vastness of God's creation, we might not be seeing the whole story. Like there's dimensions of the universe still being discovered. Maybe there's a slight chance we're not seeing the whole thing. So when we pray and when we're open, we're being open to the deepest kind of transformation. We're being open to the God who always creates new things, new possibilities. And this is really, really difficult. A while ago, I was really struggling with someone in my life who had caused lots of pain and injury. And I was meeting with a friend. And this pain, you see, it worked this way. It put such a heavy weight of anger on my shoulders that I couldn't get rid of. It put such a hate in my heart that it began to consume my life. And so when I'm meeting with this friend, he starts reading from this book. And then he starts reiterating to me, Ryan, you see, when we pray, we might have to begin to see the people who have offended us in a new light. We might have to begin seeing them as people who aren't well, as people who maybe aren't whole. And you see, after we pray like this, after we invite God to let us see them in this way, then we can pray that God might let us show the same pity, patience, and tolerance that we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. And he says once we begin praying this way, then we can begin asking God to save us from our anger, and that God's will would be done, not ours. And as he's explaining this, I thought, that's really cool. I've never heard it described this way. I mean, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to pray this way for this person in this situation and myself. But others may really dig this. And then he pops the question, Ryan, can you pray this way for 30 days? And I start bargaining with him because it's all I could do. And I said, look, I'm not sure you understand. I'm not sure you fully get the situation here. This person has caused pain and injury. And you see, if I pray about this anger stuff, and if God takes this anger away, does that mean God is taking my story away? And if God takes my story away, does that mean justice, the way I see that it needs to be done, is going to be taken from me? I'm just not ready. And he says, well, I mean, we can keep doing it your way. Doesn't seem like it's working real well. And so I agreed. For 30 days, I would pray like this. And most of my prayers, he said I had to do it in the morning because there's something powerful about starting off our day this way. And my prayers went like this on most days. God, I don't know how to pray. I don't know what to say, and I don't know if I can see this person as unwell. Is that letting them off the hook? But God, if there's the chance that they are unwell and not whole, maybe you could let me show the same pity, patience, and tolerance that I would cheerfully grant a sick friend. And God, if there's a way to save me from this anger, I'll take it. Because it's absolutely killing me. And it's hurting the people that I love most. And God, if there's a way for your will to be done, and I have no clue what that is, then let it be. Keep me open, because my way isn't working. And what I discovered was amazing. What I discovered was I needed much more than 30 days to pray. I needed several months. And what I discovered was this heavy burden of hate being lifted off of me in ways that I can't articulate. And what I discovered was when I was going to bed at night, anger wasn't coming to bed with me. And it was an incredible feeling. It was something that I had never experienced, and I can't exactly find the words to articulate. Now, in looking back, do I see this person, this situation, with just flowers and roses and flowery fields? Heck no. But I've caught this beauty, and that is prayer is about progress, not perfection. And that saved me. Prayer is about progress, not perfection. Honesty and openness, two of the hardest things we can do when we pray. And I also think it's absolutely worth it. In fact, I think it's why so many people find hope and healing and wholeness and 12-step meetings and other support groups, because it's that place where they can go and they can say exactly who they are, exactly what they've done, what they're thinking and what they're feeling, and they know there's not judgment on the other end. In fact, they know the people in the room with them are there rooting for their transformation, rooting for something new to happen in their story. And I think when we pray, God joins us. We join God. And God is rooting for our transformation. God is rooting for the transformation of the whole world. It's why Jesus teaches us to pray like this in the Sermon on the Mount. And notice he says pray in this way. Not pray exactly these words or pray just like this, but pray in this way. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your name is hallowed, not the names of the Greco-Roman gods. Your kingdom come, your will be done. God, maybe there's a chance we're not seeing the whole picture. Maybe we need your kingdom and your will and the things you teach on earth as it is in heaven. Because, God, we are trusting that heaven is actually doing just fine, but we need your will here on earth. Give us this day our daily bread. And God, every time we pray this, we recognize that we are thankful for everything you have given us, for all the food, but we also recognize that there are people among us who go hungry. So when we pray to you, we remember them also. And forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. God, just as you have forgiven us, help us forgive the people who have offended us. And do not bring us to the time of trial, but rescue us from the evil one. God, in all honesty and openness, we don't like to suffer. We don't like pain. If there's a way out of it, let it be. But God, save us, rescue us every time we're tempted to come to you in dishonesty with a mask on. God, rescue us every time we want to pray with clenched fist as if we have all the answers and we know the complete story of the universe. I don't know why some situations go one way and others go another. I don't know why someone dies over here and in a very similar situation the other person lives. But I know when God created, and this goes all the way back to the creation poem in Genesis 1, when God created, God took an incredible risk. Because anytime you create, you run the risk that that created thing won't turn out exactly as you had hoped. And I get it. Sometimes it feels like we're the streetlight people, wandering and drifting. We don't know how to pray. We don't know the words to say. We don't know the posture to hold. But we're always hoping for something more. We're always looking for deeper transformation. And when we pray, we are joining with the same divine creative energy that created the universe. So no wonder people say things like, man, when they were praying for me, I felt it. When you pray for me, I feel your prayers. In our silence, in our words, in our meditation, in our listening, we cry out to God openly, honestly. And sometimes we even hear God whisper back to us, don't stop believing. There is something new possible. Don't stop believing. Don't stop believing.